When I finally stepped into the hotel lobby that night, exhaustion hit me like a wall. The sterile chill of recycled air clung to my clothes, and the faint buzz of the overhead lights hummed against the hollow quiet. My body ached from the 12-hour flight, the kind of ache that seeps into your bones, and all I wanted was a hot shower, something warm to eat, and 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Nothing more. Nothing less. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. As I slid my ID across the polished counter, the receptionist, a young woman with tired eyes and a badge that read Eliza, typed my name into the computer. "Good evening. Welcome to Oak Ridge Hotel. Do you have a reservation?" Her voice was polite, routine, the kind of tone that comes from repetition. But then, something changed. Her fingers froze on the keyboard. The click of the keys stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes flicked to the hallway behind me, then back to the screen. I watched her pupils tighten as her expression drained of its neutral professionalism and shifted into something else. Fear. It wasn't overt. Just a flicker, like a candle fighting a draft. But I noticed. "Miss Bennett," she said softly, almost too softly. "I'm going to move your room." I frowned, confused. "Move my room? Why? Is there an issue with 308? Her gaze darted to the left as though someone might be listening. Then she leaned forward slightly, her voice trembling just enough to make my stomach twist. "Please take this key instead. Room 312. Don't go to the one you booked." At first, I thought she was joking. Maybe a plumbing issue, maybe a mistake. I even laughed under my breath, trying to lighten the tension. What, did the last guest trash it or something? But Eliza didn't laugh. Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Just trust me," she whispered. Her eyes, dark, glassy, and serious, didn't waver. I don't know why, but I took the key without another word. Maybe it was the way her hand shook slightly as she handed it to me. Maybe it was the way the air around us seemed to thicken, heavy with something unspoken. And that decision, that small, tired choice made at midnight, saved my life. The elevator doors opened with a hollow ding. My reflection in the brushed metal looked pale and drained. I told myself I was imagining things, that maybe Eliza was just having a bad night. But as the elevator climbed, my mind wouldn't let go of her face. When I stepped into the third-floor hallway, everything was still. The carpet swallowed my footsteps. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and stale perfume. A flickering light buzzed near the end of the corridor. Room 308, my original room, stood half open. Just enough for me to notice the blackness inside. I slowed down. Every instinct in me screamed to look away, to just keep walking. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. I glanced toward the door, expecting maybe to see a cleaning, art, or a flicker of movement. Nothing, just that dark crack in the frame and the faint hum of the building's old ventilation system. I hurried past it and reached room 200. My hands shook as I slid, the card through the reader. A small green light blinked, and the lock clicked open. The room was normal, blandly normal. White sheets tucked too tightly, beige curtains drawn halfway. A muted television screen frozen on the hotel's welcome channel. I locked the door, double-checked it, even tugged twice to make sure it wouldn't budge. Then I sank down on the bed and exhaled. "Everything's fine," I told myself. "You're just tired." Jet lag, paranoia. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother, Ryan. "Made it safe?" Me, "Yeah, just got to the hotel." "About to crash." His reply came within seconds. "Yeah, good. Lock your door." "You know the drill," I smiled weakly. "Always the cop," I murmured to myself, tossing the phone on the nightstand. That's when I heard it. A faint thump. Then another. At first, I thought it was plumbing, someone dropping luggage or closing a drawer too hard. But then came a sound that cut through the silence like a blade. A woman's voice. Muffled. Urgent. And then a scream. Not a startled cry. Not annoyance. A scream that carried the raw edge of terror. It came from room 308. I froze, every muscle in my body locking in place. My breath caught in my throat as I stared toward the wall separating my room from the hallway. The scream came again, shorter this time, then a loud crash. Silence, then footsteps, heavy, rushed, moving down the hall. I crept toward the door and pressed my ear against it. My pulse thundered in my ears. Someone, or something, was dragging something across the carpet. The sound was uneven, like weight being shifted. Then came a door slam. Room 308. My chest tightened. Eliza's voice echoed in my head like a ghost. Please, just trust me. I stood there for what felt like forever, barely breathing. The hallway had gone silent again, but that silence didn't feel empty. It felt watched. I dared a glance through the peephole. The hallway stretched into stillness. No movement, no footsteps. Just the dim glow of the overhead lights flickering against the faded wallpaper. But something wasn't right. A shadow lingered under the door of room 308. Too still. Too long. And even though I couldn't see who it belonged to, I could feel it watching back. I stepped away from the door, heart hammering. My hands shook as I reached for my phone. But just as I unlocked the screen to call the front desk, a faint click echoed from the hallway. A door opening. Not. 308 mine. And that's when I realized someone had slipped a master key into the lock from the other side, and they were already turning the handle. Something was wrong. I could feel it crawling beneath my skin before I even understood why. The kind of wrong that doesn't make noise at first. It just settles into the silence, thick and heavy. My fingers trembled as I reached for my phone and dialed the front desk. The line rang once, then cut off. I stared at the screen for a heartbeat before trying again. The same result. Dead silence. My reflection in the black glass of the TV flickered, ghost-like. My pulse was hammering so loudly it drowned out the air conditioner's hum. My hands shook as I typed a message to Ryan. Me. Something's happening at my hotel. I just heard someone scream in the room next to mine. His reply came instantly, like he'd been waiting. Ryan. Stay where you are. Don't open your door. I'm calling the local police right now. I nodded instinctively, even though he couldn't see me, because hearing his voice in my head was the only thing keeping me grounded. But before I could even take another breath, the sound came again. Bang. This time it wasn't distant. It was close. Too close. Like someone had kicked a door just a few rooms away. My breathing quickened. I could feel my pulse thudding against my throat as I scanned the room. The lamp, the dresser, the curtains gently swaying with the AC. All so painfully normal it made the situation feel even more surreal. My gaze landed on the small metal room key resting on the nightstand. I grabbed it instinctively, clutching it in my fist like a weapon, as if its cold, dull edge could somehow save me. Then, a shadow moved under the door. I froze, dropped into a crouch. My breath hitched. Through the narrow slit between the floor and the door, I saw them. Black shoes, polished, motionless. Someone was standing right there, my heart clenched. Seconds passed. Then a voice, male, low, smooth, deliberate. Security, he said calmly. Ma'am, are you all right in there? For a fleeting moment, relief washed through me. Maybe the police had arrived already. Maybe I was safe. But then something in his tone made the hairs rise on my arms. It wasn't the voice of someone trained to de-escalate. It was too casual, too sure of itself. My instincts screamed. Don't open it. I stayed silent. Not even a breath escaped. He knocked again, this time louder, sharper, impatient. Ma'am, we need to check all rooms. Please open the door. I didn't move. Not even an inch. After a few more knocks, the sound of his footsteps faded down the hall. The silence that followed felt heavier than before, pressing against my chest like a weight. I finally exhaled, shaky, uneven, realizing I'd been holding my breath the entire time. My phone buzzed. Ryan again, Ryan. Police are on their way. Stay calm and don't move, I typed back with trembling fingers. Me. Someone's pretending to be security. He replied within seconds. Ryan. Good. then you already know not to open that door. Minutes passed. Maybe 5. Maybe 15. Time didn't feel real anymore. I sat on the carpet, my back to the wall, phone clutched tight in both hands, listening to every creak and whisper of the hallway. Then, faint noises, doors opening, footsteps, the soft chime of the elevator arriving. Maybe. Whoever it was had left. I almost let myself believe that. Until I heard it. A woman's voice, weak, trembling, desperate. "Please, someone help me." It came from room 308. My stomach twisted. It was the same room, my room, the one Eliza had told me not to enter. I wanted to help. Every part of me wanted to rip open that door and run to her. But another part, the terrified, rational part, whispered that it might not be real. That maybe it was bait, a trap. I pressed my hands against my ears, trying to shut it out, but the cries pierced straight through the noise in my head. Then, just as suddenly as they began, the woman's voice was drowned out by a sound that froze my blood, a door slamming shut, followed by a man's low, chilling laugh echoing down the hallway. Then nothing. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. I stayed there, shaking, staring at the door. Every instinct screamed to get out, but where would I go? My knees felt weak as I forced myself to crawl toward the window. I pulled the curtain back an inch and looked down into the darkness. 2 floors below, a white van sat by the side exit, engine off, headlights dark. A figure stood beside it, talking on a phone. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a hooded jacket that made it impossible to see his face. But his body language, calm, methodical, made my skin crawl. I raised my phone and hit record. My hands were shaking so badly that the camera footage blurred, but I kept going, zooming in as much as I could. Then, as if sensing me, the man looked up, right at my window. For one heart-stopping second, our eyes met through the glass. Or at least, I think they did. Then he turned away and disappeared behind the van. That was the moment I broke. I locked the deadbolt, shoved a chair under the handle, and backed away, heart racing so fast I could hear it in my ears. Who were these people? Why had Eliza changed my room? Then my phone rang. "Hello?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Miss Bennett," came Eliza's voice, soft, shaky, terrified. "Do not open your door for anyone. The police are on their way. Whatever happens, don't move." "Eliza?" I hissed, pressing the phone tighter to my ear. "What's happening? Who are these people?" A pause. I could hear her breathing, quick and uneven. "I can't talk long," she whispered. "But there's something you need to know. Someone checked in tonight using your name and ID." My knees almost gave out. "What?" "Yes," she said. "The system flagged it right after you arrived. That's why I changed your room. I didn't want you walking into whatever they were planning." "Who are they meeting?" I demanded. She hesitated. "They were supposed to meet someone in 308. When I realized it wasn't you," her voice broke. I heard shouting in the background, muffled at first, then closer. A scuffle. "Eliza? Eliza!" I shouted into the phone. The line went dead. The silence after that was unbearable. I could hear my own heartbeat in my skull. Then, footsteps, heavy boots pounding down the hallway. Coming fast. I backed up until I hit the far wall, eyes fixed on the door. My brother's words echoed in my head like a mantra. "Don't open it." No matter what, the footsteps stopped right outside my room. Then came the knocks. 3 of them, slow, deliberate, each one heavier than the last. Thud. Thud! Thud! Vibrating through the door and into my chest. I held my breath, clutching my phone like it was a lifeline, praying for it to ring again, for the police, for Eliza, for someone. But there was nothing. Only the soft hum of the air conditioner and the quiet creak of the chair pressed against the handle. Until the handle turned. The knocks came again. Louder this time, harder, shaking the frame of the door like the pulse of a nightmare refusing to end. Whoever was outside wasn't leaving. "Miss Bennett," a deep male voice called out, steady and commanding. "It's the police. We're checking all rooms. Please open the door. For a heartbeat, I froze. Police already? My brother had said they were on their way, but I hadn't heard sirens. No flashing lights. No shouting in the distance. Just that voice. Too composed. Too calm. My instincts whispered the truth before my mind caught up. Something's wrong. I took a careful step closer to the door but didn't unlock it. My voice trembled as I called out, "Can you show me your badge through the peephole?" A pause, a silence so thick I could hear my own breathing. Then the voice changed. The tone dropped, softer but colder. "Miss Bennett, if you don't open this door, we'll be forced to come in." That was all I needed to hear. He wasn't a cop. The air in the room turned heavy, suffocating. I could feel sweat gather at the back of my neck as I whispered to myself, "Stay calm. Stay quiet." My mind was screaming for control, but fear had already taken the wheel. I backed away slowly and grabbed the nearest thing that could serve as a weapon, a metal lamp from the bedside table. Its weight felt foreign in my trembling hands, but it was all I had. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. The silence stretched for a few seconds, long enough to hope he'd gone, and then metal scraped against the lock. My blood ran cold. Someone was trying to open my door. The sound was methodical, deliberate, like someone working a lockpick. My eyes darted to the chair I'd jammed under the handle. That flimsy piece of furniture might be the only thing standing between me and death. I pressed my back against the wall, clutching the lamp like a lifeline, and texted Ryan with shaking hands. "Me. Someone's trying to get in. Pretending to be police. I'm in room 312. His reply came almost instantly, every word like oxygen. "Ryan. Hold on. I just got confirmation. Real police are 5 minutes away. Do not open that door for anyone. 5 minutes, 5 minutes. I could survive 5 minutes. I told myself that over and over again, as if repetition could make it true. The scraping stopped. The silence returned, heavy, expectant. Maybe he'd given up. Maybe he'd left. Then crash. The door exploded inward, splintering under the force of a boot. It burst open halfway before slamming into the chair wedged beneath the handle. The chain lock stretched, but held. "For now," I screamed, a raw, instinctive sound, stumbling backward as the lamp slipped from my fingers and clattered to the carpet. A man's arm forced its way through the gap, reaching for the chain. Thick, muscular, veins bulging under the effort. "Get away from me," I cried, snatching the lamp again and swinging it with everything I had. The metal connected with a sickening crack. The man groaned in pain and jerked back. His arm vanished. The door slammed shut, the chain snapping tight again. I shoved the chair back into place and braced my body against the door, breathing hard, gasping for air that wouldn't come. My hands shook so violently I could barely hold the lamp. Then came the pounding. Furious, relentless. "You think you can hide in there?" The man shouted, his voice twisted with rage. "You shouldn't have come here, Nora!" My name. He knew my name. My entire body went cold. I felt my stomach twist as dread sank in. How could he know? My reservation had only been made online through the hotel's secure system. Whoever this was, he had my information. My identity. The pounding grew louder. My tears blurred the edges of the room. I wanted to scream for help, but I knew it wouldn't matter. Then, faintly, through the chaos, I heard it. Sirens. The sound cut through the panic like light through fog. Distant at first, then closer. Flashes of red and blue spilled through the blinds, painting the room in frantic, flickering colors. Relief flooded through me so fast I almost collapsed. The pounding stopped. Then, silence. Footsteps echoed down the hall, fading toward the stairwell. He was running. I stood frozen, listening, counting the seconds until I heard voices. Real ones this time. Sharp, authoritative, police. "Drop your weapon!" "Hands where we can see them." A commotion followed. Shouts, the scuffle of boots, then one last thud, and silence again. My phone buzzed in my shaking hand. Ryan. "Nora, are you okay?" His voice cracked with panic but stayed steady enough to keep me from breaking completely. "I think so," I whispered, my voice barely holding together. "They tried to get in. They knew my name." "The police have someone in custody," he said. "Stay where you are." "I'm on my way." I didn't move until I heard the knock, this time firm, professional, followed by a clear voice through the door. "Denver Police." Badge up to the peephole. I looked. Real badge, real uniform, real relief. I unlocked the door with trembling fingers, stepping back as two officers entered cautiously, flashlights sweeping across the room. "You're safe now," one of them said gently. He was tall, calm, eyes steady. "We've got him." My knees gave out, and I sank onto the bed, the adrenaline draining out of me all at once. "Who was he?" I asked. The officer exchanged a look with his partner, the kind of silent exchange that says this isn't the first time. "We believe he's connected to a group targeting women traveling alone," he said. "The receptionist recognized his voice earlier tonight." "That's why she switched your room, Eliza," I whispered. "Where is she?" "Is she okay?" He nodded. "She's shaken, but she's the reason you're alive. She called us right after she lost contact with you." The words hit me like a wave. Tears filled my eyes before I could stop them. My chest ached from the release of everything I'd been holding in. I covered my face, letting out a trembling breath that felt like it had been trapped for hours. The officers escorted me downstairs. The lobby was alive with motion. Paramedics, uniforms, flashing radios. Eliza sat in a chair near the front desk, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. When she saw me, she stood up instantly. Her eyes were red, tired, but alive. "I told you not to go to that room," she said softly, her voice trembling but firm. I nodded, wiping at my tears. "You saved me. I don't even know how to thank you." She looked down, shaking her head. "You don't have to. Just promise me one thing." "What's that?" "Never ignore your gut feeling," she said. "It's the only thing that listens when logic doesn't." Before I could answer, an officer gently guided her toward the detectives waiting to take her statement. I watched her go, steady but haunted. Outside, the night air hit me like a shock, cool, damp, real. The red and blue lights washed over the hotel windows, reflecting my pale, exhausted face back at me. And for the first time, I realized how close I had come to being one of those headlines you scroll past on your phone. "Woman found dead in hotel room, but not tonight, not me, not because of one woman's instinct, and a single whispered warning that saved my life." Morning came quietly, almost cruelly normal, as if the night before hadn't happened at all. Guests were checking out, wheeling suitcases across the polished marble floor, smiling at the front desk, chatting about breakfast and sightseeing plans. Their laughter floated through the lobby like ghosts of another world, one I no longer belonged to. I stood near the glass doors, staring at the parking lot where the white van had been parked just hours earlier. The space was empty now, but in my mind, it was still there, headlights off, engine humming faintly, the memory of that shadowed figure etched into my nerves like a scar that would never quite fade. I was still watching that space when Ryan's car pulled up to the curb. The moment he saw me, he didn't hesitate. He ran straight toward me and wrapped me in a hug so tight I could barely breathe. "You scared me half to death," he whispered into my hair, voice rough and trembling in a way I'd never heard before. I tried to smile, tried to lighten the moment. "Join the club," I said weakly, though we both knew there was nothing funny about it. He pulled back just enough to look me in the eyes. "You know this could have gone differently, right?" His voice broke slightly on the last word. I nodded, feeling tears burn behind my eyes. "I know," I said quietly, "and I'll never forget that." We didn't speak much on the drive out of Denver. The city skyline slid past the car windows, golden in the rising sun, a glittering mirage that seemed almost indifferent to what had happened. I watched people crossing streets, laughing, sipping coffee from paper cups, completely unaware of how close danger sometimes breathes, how easily a normal night can split open and reveal something dark and unimaginable underneath. Hours later, As I sat alone at the airport waiting for my flight home, I tried to convince myself that it was over, that I was safe now, that I could put this behind me. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced down, expecting a message from Ryan. Instead, it was from an unknown number. My heart lurched when I read the words, "You were lucky this time, Nora." 6 words. No name, no number. Just that cold, taunting sentence. My fingers went numb. I showed it to Ryan the moment he arrived at my gate. He went pale and immediately called the detective. They told us it could have been sent before the suspect ditched his phone, that I shouldn't worry. But I did, because deep down I knew. That man hadn't just stumbled upon me. He had studied me, my name, my habits, my movements. He'd known where I'd be, what room I was supposed to have, even the way I hesitated before making a decision. That kind of knowing doesn't happen overnight. When my flight finally took off, I pressed my forehead against the cool window and watched the city shrink beneath the clouds. I whispered a quiet thank you to Eliza, to Ryan, and to the tiny voice inside me that refused to be silenced when everything in me wanted to believe I was overreacting. That night changed me forever. It taught me that evil doesn't always come wearing a mask or hiding in a dark alley. Sometimes it smiles politely from across a counter. Sometimes it sounds like authority. Sometimes it looks perfectly ordinary. Back home, the days blurred together. I went through the motions, but I wasn't the same. Every sound made me jump. A door creaking, a car slowing outside, the buzz of my phone in the dark. I found myself double-locking doors, checking windows twice and sleeping with the lights on. Ryan called it paranoia. I called it staying alive. Sleep came in fragments, and when it did, it brought dreams of that hallway, the knocks, the voice outside my door, the echo of that woman's scream from room 308. I would wake gasping, drenched in cold sweat, heart pounding as if I were still trapped in that room. Ryan eventually convinced me to take time off work. "You need to let your mind heal," he said. He was right. For weeks, I tried to bury it all, to convince myself that distance would dull the memory. But the truth doesn't fade just because you ignore it. One afternoon, while cleaning my living room, I found the folder the detective had given me. Inside were printed reports, photos, and copies of my statement. My hands trembled as I reread them, each word dragging me back into that night. That was when I realized this wasn't just my story. It was a warning, a reminder of how thin the line really is between safety and danger. So, instead of hiding, I decided to speak. Ryan helped me contact a local women's safety group that supported travelers and victims of online crimes. When they asked if I would share my experience, I almost said no. The thought of reliving that night, of standing in front of strangers and peeling open that wound, terrified me. But then I remembered Eliza's voice. Never ignore your gut feeling. And my gut told me it was time. When the day came, I stood before a room of 30 women, students, nurses, business travelers, single mothers. Their eyes followed me as I began to speak. At first, my voice trembled. But as I told them about that night, about the phone call, the scream, the van, the message, I saw their faces change. Fear, disbelief, horror, and then something else, determination. Afterward, one woman came up to me, tears in her eyes. "I was followed once on a work trip," she said. I brushed it off. "But after hearing you, I'll never ignore my instincts again." That moment shifted something inside me. It didn't erase the trauma, but it gave it purpose. I was no longer just someone who survived. I was someone who could help others do the same. 3 weeks later, the final suspect, the one who sent that text, was caught hiding under a false name in another state. When the detective called to tell me, I didn't feel triumphant. I just sat there in silence, too tired to feel anything. But that night, sitting on my porch with a cup of tea, I finally exhaled. The air felt lighter. For the first time in months, I could watch the sunset without looking over my shoulder. A few months later, I returned to Denver, not to relive the past, but to close it. The hotel had reopened under new management. I asked to see Eliza. When she appeared, she looked healthier, calmer, but her eyes still carried the weight of that night. We met in the little cafe across the street where the world felt slower somehow. I still think about that night, I told her softly. I don't think I'd be here without you. She smiled, faint but warm. You would have made it, she said. You're stronger than you think. I shook my head. I was terrified. So was I, she said quietly. Courage isn't about not being scared. It's about acting anyway. We talked for nearly an hour, about fear, survival, and how life looks different once you've seen the edge of it. Before I left, she handed me a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note that simply said, "Keep listening to your instincts. They saved you once. They'll save you again." When I got home, I framed that note and hung it beside my front door. Every morning when I leave, it greets me. A silent reminder of what almost happened, and how one stranger's courage, one whispered warning changed everything. Over time, the nightmares faded. I began to feel normal again, but a wiser kind of normal. Now I carry pepper spray, a flashlight, and a small personal alarm wherever I go. I double-check hotel locks, exits, and staff badges. Some call it paranoia. I call it wisdom earned the hard way, and one evening, sitting at my desk with that note above me, I began to write. What started as therapy became something larger, a story meant to reach others. A story not just about fear, but about survival, intuition, and the quiet power of instinct. That story became the one you're listening to now. So if you've made it this far, remember this. The world isn't always safe, but you are not powerless. Trust your gut. Listen when it whispers. Because sometimes that whisper is the only thing standing between you and the unthinkable. And if this story moved you, if it made you think, or breathe a little deeper, or double-check your door tonight, then please, subscribe to the channel, share this video, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps keep these real stories alive. Stories that remind us to stay alert, stay kind, and always, always trust our instincts. Because heroes don't always wear badges or uniforms. Sometimes they're just ordinary people who care enough to warn a stranger. And sometimes that's all it takes to save a life.